The Statue of Liberty is perhaps the most recognizable icon of the modern world, a colossal beacon that has come to represent the very essence of democratic freedom and the promise of a new life. Yet, for all its fame, the monument hides a profound secret in plain sight. Most visitors who make the pilgrimage to Liberty Island are focused entirely on the copper figure above. They board the ferries at Battery Park, navigate the winding queues for security screenings, and ascend the stone steps toward the pedestal with their eyes fixed firmly on the sky. They marvel at the green oxidation of the copper skim, the radiant crown, and the torch held high against the Manhattan skyline. They pause to read the stirring words of Emma Lazarus inscribed upon the bronze plaque, reflecting on the huddled masses yearning to breathe free. Having fulfilled their civic duty to history, they return to the ferry and depart, never once looking down.
They do not walk the outer perimeter of the massive foundation upon which the statue rests. They do not count the sharp, rhythmic protrusions of the masonry, or measure the precise, unconventional angles of the base. Because they do not look, they remain oblivious to the fact that the Statue of Liberty sits atop an 11-pointed star fortification, a structure that defies every standard convention of 19th-century American military engineering. The geometry beneath their feet does not match the documented history of the United States Army, nor does it align with the practical defensive needs of the era in which it was supposedly built. When one begins to examine the structure beneath the pedestal, the official narrative, so smooth, so well-rehearsed, and so universally accepted, begins to fracture. The masonry itself tells a story that contradicts the history books. This is not merely a pedestal, it is a specific monument with a specific iconography, placed with deliberate intent upon a pre-existing structure whose true origins have been systematically obscured. Once you begin to look at the geometry and the physical evidence, the cracks in the official record spread in every direction, leading toward a global network of similar fortifications across Europe and Asia. These structures, which mainstream historians insist were built by different cultures across different centuries for disparate reasons, all share impossible architectural features. They lead us back to an ancient, pre-Christian symbolism that has been scrubbed from the public-facing history of the project, raising a haunting question. What was actually here before the United States existed, and why is the truth of its construction considered a forbidden topic? This investigation explores the 11-pointed star at the entrance to New York Harbor, what it truly represents, and why the world's most famous statue was used to crown it. If you value these deep dives into the buried history that textbooks have spent generations omitting, I encourage you to subscribe to the channel. We release new investigations weekly, tackling the questions that the official record has spent centuries trying to close. The official version of this story is easily accessible on any government website or in any standard history text. According to these records, the structure beneath the Statue of Liberty is known as Fort Wood. It was named in honor of Lieutenant Colonel Eleazar Wood, a hero of the War of 1812 who perished during the Battle of Fort Erie in 1814. The fort was reportedly constructed between 1808 and 1811 as part of the Second System of American Coastal Defense. The designer of record was a young Army engineer named Joseph Gilbert Totten. The site, then known as Bedloe's Island, was chosen for its strategic position in the harbor. Following the War of 1812, the fort allegedly served various minor military functions before falling into disuse by the 1870s. When the French proposed gifting a colossal statue to the American people, the old 11-pointed walls were deemed a convenient and sturdy foundation. The record presents this as a simple matter of logistical pragmatism. However, a closer inspection reveals several glaring problems with this account. The first issue concerns the purported engineer, Joseph Totten. Totten is not a mythical figure. He is a well-documented historical personage who graduated from West Point in 1805 and eventually rose to become the chief engineer of the United States Army. His career was prolific, and his designs are preserved in detail within the National Archives. We can trace his evolution as an engineer through dozens of coastal fortifications spanning the eastern seaboard and the Gulf of Mexico. When we examine Tottен's body of work, a consistent pattern emerges. Fort Adams in Newport, Rhode Island, which he began in the 1820s, is a complex pentagonal bastion fort. Fort Monroe in Virginia is an irregular hexagon. Fort Macon in North Carolina is a classic five-pointed star. Fort Pulaski in Georgia is a pentagonal casemated structure. Even Fort Sumter, a project on which Totten worked extensively, follows a clear pentagonal plan. Totten's work is characterized by straightforward, functional bastion geometry, designed for specific lines of fire and defensive efficiency. It is the work of a competent, conventional 19th century American military mind.
Fort Wood is the radical exception. It is an 11-pointed star, a hendecagram, with a geometric complexity that has no parallel in any other Totten design, nor in any other American military structure of that period. There is no obvious defensive logic for such a shape. Why would an engineer who utilized pentagons and hexagons for his entire career suddenly decide to construct a singular 11-pointed anomaly at Bedloe's Island, never explain his reasoning, and never attempt to replicate the design again? In the world of military engineering, such a departure from standard practice is not just a curiosity, it is a red flag.
The second problem lies in the masonry itself. The walls of Fort Wood are composed of finely cut granite blocks, fitted together with a degree of precision that was highly unusual for American military construction in the early 1800s. The corners are expertly dressed, the joints are incredibly tight, and the stones are massive and regular. They are laid in courses that suggest a mastery of masonry born from centuries of tradition. By contrast, American military construction during the years leading up to the War of 1812 was notoriously hurried and often rudimentary. The young republic was cash-strapped, and its engineering corps was still in its infancy. Most forts from this era were built quickly, using whatever local materials and labor were available. They were functional, but they were rough.
Fort Wood does not look like the product of a hurried, resource-poor republic in 1810. It bears the hallmarks of an established European masonry tradition, the kind that produced the legendary star forts of the Netherlands, northern Italy, and the German states. When you compare the stonework of Fort Wood to other Totten projects from the same era, the discrepancy is jarring. His other works look American. They are utilitarian and reflect the limitations of their time. Fort Wood looks old world. It belongs to a tradition of fortification that was already considered antique and unnecessarily ornate by the 19th century. The third and perhaps most significant problem is the geometry of the 11-pointed star itself. In the classical Tres Italien, or bastion fort tradition, which dominated European military architecture from the 16th to the 19th centuries, 5, 6, or 8 points were the standard. The Vauban tradition in France, the gold standard for fortification, almost never utilized star geometries exceeding 8 points. From a military standpoint, adding more points is counterproductive. It creates dead zones where defenders cannot see the base of the walls. It reduces the effective field of fire from each bastion, and it makes the perimeter significantly harder to garrison and supply. An 11-pointed star is an irrational choice for a fort intended to defend a harbor against naval vessels. It is a logistical nightmare that offers no tactical advantage over a simpler pentagon or hexagon.
If the 11-pointed star was not a military choice, what was it? While rare in warfare, the hendecagram is a recurring motif in a very different context: esoteric symbolism. The number 11 holds profound significance in various Western Hermetic and secret traditions. It is frequently associated with the threshold, the gate between worlds, and the principle of spiritual mastery. In the cosmological diagrams of Renaissance thinkers and the floor plans of certain specialized cathedrals, the 11-pointed geometry is used to denote a transition point or a sacred boundary. When we view the structure at the entrance to New York Harbor through this lens, its purpose shifts. It ceases to be a failed defensive battery and becomes a symbolic statement. The placement of a colossal figure, modeled after the Roman goddess Libertas, but bearing striking similarities to the iconography of Isis or Hecate,
atop an 11-pointed gate suggests a much deeper layer of intent. The statue is not merely a gift from the people of France. It is a monument placed upon an ancient foundation to claim and label a site of pre-existing significance. The official story asks us to believe that a young engineer accidentally created a masterpiece of esoteric geometry while trying to build a simple fort, and that the French just happened to find this unique shape to be the perfect pedestal for their monument. But the physical evidence suggests a different reality. It suggests that the star fort was already there, perhaps a remnant of a much older global civilization that understood the mathematics of the Earth in ways we are no longer taught. It suggests that the construction of Fort Wood in 1808 was in reality a renovation or a reclassification of a structure that the American government found rather than built. This concept of inherited architecture is one that the keepers of the official record have worked tirelessly to suppress. If we acknowledge that the 11-pointed star predates the official history of the United States, we are forced to question the entire timeline of the discovery and settlement of the New World. We are forced to look at the other star forts scattered across the continent, many of which are also attributed to engineers who seemingly lacked the resources to build them, and ask if we are living among the ruins of a buried century.
The Statue of Liberty stands as a veil. Its beauty and its powerful message of freedom serve to distract the eye from the foundation beneath. But the geometry does not lie. The stones can still be measured, and the historical inconsistencies remain for anyone willing to look down. The 11-pointed star is a silent witness to a history that has been overwritten, a remnant of a world that existed before the maps were redrawn and the textbooks were written. It is time we stopped merely looking up at the torch and started looking down at the ground upon which it stands. Only then can we begin to uncover the true story of what was here before and why the truth has been kept hidden for so long.